and obey this curfew, which is now in effect for 21 minutes. Again, what you're watching, folks, if you're just joining us, live pictures from the city of North Charleston, where these protesters have been told repeatedly they must go home because they are violating the 6 o'clock curfew. It's now 6:21. Police with, I guess you'd call those billy clubs, are walking toward the protesters, making sure, I guess, that they go home. And we're just watching this. You're watching it as I am, and I'm trying to describe as best I can what we're seeing, but you can see it too. So the protesters, it looks like, are going back, followed closely by the police. Again, this is in North Charleston. These are live pictures coming from our Live 5 news team. Nick Reagan is there live. Paola Tristan Aruda is there live. Should something happen, we hope it doesn't, of course, but should something happen, we've got reporters on the scene we can go to almost instantly. Once again, these are pictures of the protesters in North Charleston, we believe, going back home or going to their cars, or certainly leaving the scene, and you've got a contingent of officers behind them. There are several police agencies on the ground here in North Charleston. Perhaps it could be said to be another overwhelming police presence, and they
we can do whatever you need.
They are marching behind the protesters. Let's listen in and see what we can hear.
Yeah, Bill, we're following the police line right now. You can see we're going to grab some shots of the protesters. What we're hearing is that right at about 6 o'clock, when that curfew kicked in, that police began to at least engage into the crowd. Again, we're not sure if there was a triggering moment or why folks may be detained at this point, but what we do know is that we're hearing from these folks that are coming back from their walk that they just started suddenly, and that folks were getting tackled and thrown to the ground. Now, we're still waiting to hear the official account here, but we are getting lots of input from the folks who are running away here. Ma'am, could you tell me what you saw?
Those police officers back there arrested somebody. It took 4 of them to arrest him. I have it on camera.
Any idea why?
See you later. They didn't want us in the streets.
Were you actively blocking traffic?
I don't know if that, man. I have it on recording. I have it on recording. I could send it to you by your thing later.
All right.
And then they tried to block us from videotaping the man getting arrested. They hog-tied him. They had his legs or his arms pulled up right there, and then they pulled his legs up too. And they held him down like that.
Can you pull the video up right now? Can you show us that?
It's a minute long.
That's all right. Again, we're hearing a lot of these stories right now from folks who are walking by that protesters in the crowd were being targeted and were being taken into custody.
We didn't have a right to protest any other time. We had a right to protest the curfew for the corona disease, but now we get a curfew just because people are protesting for Black lives. I don't understand that. I don't think that's fair.
Are you able to pull that video up for us? Can we take a look at that? All right, she is going to pull that up for us.
All right, this is...
As she's showing it to us, it looks like...
There was a lot of talking at first.
So this is a little bit of a long video. We're going to try and see if we can get to the part where she says that one of her friends was arrested, hogtied by police. All right, you can see in the video right now what's happening is an engagement, police engaging in with those protesters right now. Again, she says at some point where one of her friends is, you can see it there right now, one of her friends being taken into custody as she's as close as she can get. And it does look like several officers
using force,
as she mentioned right now, using force to subdue one of those protesters. Again, we're not entirely certain if there was a flashpoint in this, or if it was simply out past curfew blocking some traffic. But we are seeing a very heavy police presence here in North Charleston. Just in front of us, I'm seeing 2 SWAT cars, an army vehicle, and a whole army, if you will, of police cars. But as of right now, it looks like there's almost more law enforcement than protesters at this given time. I'm seeing a lot of protesters getting in their cars, trying to drive away. Again, we should mention the curfew did just kick in about 26 minutes ago. So we're being asked to move back as well. And we're going to continue to move back. We're going to continue to bring these live shots to you as more information is made available. But again, what we're seeing is a lot of police presence, police armed with sticks, batons, as well as you're seeing some of those heavier protest equipment like the guns and the smoke, or I should say the tear gas weapons as well. And it just feels like there's a lot of unrest here right now. A lot of police, not a lot of protesters. A lot of those protesters have gotten back into their cars and they're trying to make their way back. Now, at 4:30, when this whole protest was supposed to start, it was supposed to take place, or at least the authorities believed it was supposed to take place, in front of the City Hall building, and police had set up all of these barricades so that they could protest in that parking lot. Well, the protesters didn't like that. They didn't want those barricades there, so they ended up doing stuff in the back, in the corner, and they felt like they were never given the space to properly protest at while maintaining social distancing. So that was sort of an immediate reaction from protesters. They were already sort of angry about that, but they did keep it peaceful, and it was, for the most part, a peaceful protest. And again, when they decided to take their march, their plan was at about 5:45, they were going to march for about 10 minutes, and then start marching back so they could all be back in their cars before 6 p.m., before that curfew kicked in. Now, we don't know exactly what happened, but we waited for them to come back, and not all of them had started to return before 6 o'clock. So they were certainly out past curfew, but what led to the massive police presence, and massive is truly the word right now. We're seeing lots and lots of police, and there is a helicopter overhead with North Charleston police, it looks like.
Nick.
But we're not sure why those things began to. Yes, Bill, go ahead.
We understood from one of the protesters who talked to Paola that police gave them at least 3 warnings. Did you, when you were on the scene, hear any of those warnings from police that it was past curfew and time for them to leave?
Well, let's ask Paola, did you hear those 3 commands at all when you had heard from one of the protesters that police had given 3 commands? Did you hear those?
I didn't. Of course, we were a far way back from that gas station. I was told by that protester that, they said, you guys need to be back only one time. That was their last warning. But they also, according to this protester, they said that they had 3 warnings beforehand. I personally didn't hear that. What I saw when we were just off of the highway was, people running back, people almost getting hit by cars because they were running back. We saw young people, they were afraid. Some of them were crying, some of them were screaming. Some of them have never dealt with anything like this before. People were just traumatized. And Bill, at any point, if there's anything that you want to say, you can just let Nick know. But it is very, very difficult to kind of witness what's happening here from both the protesters who say this started out peacefully, and they say that they didn't know, why this happened. We weren't down there at the gas station to witness it for ourselves, so we're just kind of hearing it from the people who were there. But as you can see now, it is a larger police presence than even the protesters that were out here. There were maybe 100 protesters out here. Many of them have left at this point, but you can still see the police presence that remains. We sort of left the protesters when they were marching up towards the gas station because we knew that they were going to be turning around. But then when they did, we just saw a lot of police vehicles and, SWAT team cars and vehicles just sort of go towards the gas station. We didn't know what was going to happen at that point until we started seeing piece by piece some of the protesters walking back, and that's when we saw people running. And then by that point, things have escalated, and there are a lot of police cars on the road. And as you can see now, that presence remains. There's a helicopter here, and so we're still kind of here. So what can you tell us about what's happening right now at this moment?
Yeah, I think as you all saw initially, it started out relatively peaceful. They got with us and they said they wanted to walk towards Tanger. They understood the curfew. They agreed to finish up by 6 o'clock, and they proceeded up Montague Avenue. And as you probably saw, about halfway up Montague, between Mall Drive and International, they decided to obstruct the roadway. We repeatedly asked them to get out of the roadway, stop obstructing traffic, and they weren't cooperative. So unfortunately, we had to make some arrests. After the arrest, I think a majority of them have come back and have since started to depart the area. It's unfortunate. It started out relatively peaceful, and we had good communication with the leadership of the group, but unfortunately some of them decided not to do what they agreed to do, and we just can't allow them to obstruct the traffic and break the laws in the city of North Charleston.
So you're saying this happened because they decided to block off the roadway?
Yeah, I think you probably saw it. They just stopped traffic, and we gave them 5 minutes. We gave them order after order to get out of the roadway to allow the traffic to flow, and they just decided not to adhere to our request. So at that point, we had to make some arrests to allow traffic to continue to flow.
Do we know how many arrests at this point have been made?
I don't have that information. Unfortunately, I don't have it. We'll get it for you, though.
Okay, and